Okay, so I just found out about this new coin and I really just went down the rabbit hole in the past couple of hours and I'm trying to get my head around it, but it's really cool and I think you're going to want to take a look at it. It's not out yet, but they're estimating maybe mid-July, and it's called icosa, and it's a complement to HEX and Hedron. And so I'm going to tell you my initial thoughts. Obviously, I just found out about this, so I'm still trying to formulate my opinion, but at the end of the video, stick around because then you can make your own decision about what you think about this and let me know in the comments below. But it's called icosa, okay, and it's a staking Hedron coin. So if you guys haven't watched my previous videos about Hedron, or if you don't know what Hedron is, you're going to want to start with understanding that. Long story short, it's basically tokenized HEX stakes that you can then sell as NFTs or borrow against in the form of Hedron token. So you can take out a loan against your stake and you can trade stakes. So that's what Hedron did. But icosa is building on top of that, and I think the reason behind that is to add more speculative stickiness, to make Hedron even more sticky and add another layer of game theory on top of it. Because if we look at the price of Hedron, I mean, Hedron had a huge pump in the early days, but then it's just pretty much been flatlining, and obviously that's because of the bear market. I do expect this to come back one day, years in the future. But right now, it's very simple. Nobody really wants to buy Hedron. And, part of this is probably because the people that minted early had an outsized number of coins, and they were just kind of dumping consistently on top of the bear market, on top of the fact that, well, you just can't really do too much with Hedron. So we're adding staking to it with icosa, which is pretty cool, and staking is one of those narratives that is kind of proven to get people to want to hold things for a while, but it's also much more than that, and I'm going to get into it because it's really complex, so stick with me and try to understand it on a deep level, because there's a lot here that we have to unpack. Alright, so it's not out yet. It might launch in mid-July, and again, I just said might, so it's not going to guarantee to launch in mid-July, but icosa is really just like the first part of the word icosahedron, and it's like, icosa and hedron, like they complement each other. Fun fact, icosa is also a 20-line poem, so do with that information what you will. So it's really simple on the website here. Guys, again, it hasn't launched yet, but what they're going to do is HSI buybacks. So everybody that tokenized a stake that now put their, NFTs version of a stake up on some platform for sale. Well, not a lot of people are buying these NFTs right now. So it gives some additional functionality to actually buy back these NFTs. And the reason for that is because, if there's a 15-year HEX stake and there's only been like 100 days that Hedron's ever existed, or maybe a little more than that. So if only 100 days out of 15 years has been completed in the HSI, which is the wrapped HEX stake, people aren't going to be really wanting to pay that much more of a premium for it, and I don't think it's getting a lot of traction in terms of volume on the NFT marketplace, trading these HEX stakes as NFTs, which remember is what Hedron allowed you to do. So what icosa can do for your Hedron stake, if you have one, I personally don't, but if you do have a wrapped HEX stake in an NFT form, an HSI is what they're called, a HEX staking instance, you can actually sell that back to the icosa contract, and the icosa contract will buy this from you and give you icosa coin, so ICSA. So it's a new ticker symbol, new coin, but they complement each other. So let's get into why and exactly how it does that. So if you want to cash in your HSI stake, you can just send it to the icosa contract and there will always be a buyer. The icosa smart contract will always be able to buy your HSI stake from you. In return, it'll give you icosa, which is an inflationary token that starts from 0 supply. Okay, so keep that in mind. There's no icosa at first, and then there becomes icosa when people cash these stakes in. And what happens after you cash that stake in, guys, what happens with that stake is that it's immediately borrowed against, meaning it mints all of its available Hedron for its entire stake lifetime, and then it automatically defaults on its loan. Because remember, the other functionality of HSIs is that you can borrow against your stake in the form of Hedron tokens, but you do have to pay them back. So this contract will essentially buy your HSI back from you, mint all the available Hedron that it could possibly mint, and then automatically choose not to pay the Hedron stake back, and therefore default on the loan. Now, why would it want to do this? Well, that's because it then sends those stakes back to the auction. So remember in Hedron, if somebody defaulted on their HEX stake in Hedron, it would be put up for auction. So you actually would be able to buy HEX stakes at lower rates than you would get today. You'd essentially be able to buy T-shares for a cheaper price than you could today, which is basically like taking a time machine back in time. And getting to buy an earlier stake is, in my opinion, a huge value prop when it comes to HEX, right? Because earlier stakes will always pay you better. Even if it's just marginally better, you're still getting a good deal. So what it's going to do is basically put up a bunch of HSI stakes that people are cashing in on the auction market, and then people can go bid and basically just go shopping for cheaper HEX stakes. So this could be a great way for somebody to kind of buy into HEX for the first time. They could, instead of just buying it on the open market, they could buy one of these wrapped HEX stakes that basically have a better T-share rate than they'd be able to get at this current day. Make sense? And we've seen that the auction part of Hedron is somewhat successful, right? People love the ability to be able to shop for discounted stakes, essentially. So that's one of the cool features of Hedron that works, and I think that's why they're choosing to apply that to icosa as well. And now, so remember all that Hedron that was minted from that HSI stake that was then defaulted on? Well, that Hedron still exists, and it has to go somewhere. So what happens with that big pile of Hedron after that HSI stake goes to the auction house, essentially, is that Hedron gets divvied up 50-50. Okay, half of it gets burned, and the other half goes to icosa stakers. So you can stake icosa coin and get some of this Hedron that's coming in from all of these cashed in HSIs. Now, there's a lot of terminology being thrown around here, so try to follow with me right now. You might want to slow down and maybe watch this a couple times. And read the website too. Read the website. It takes about an hour or two for this to really sink in. At least it did for me. So it also unlocks 2 new staking capabilities. Basically, you can now stake Hedron, giving an additional functionality to Hedron. Just one more reason to hold it. So minimizing sell pressure on Hedron, because staking obviously works for most coins. It gives an incentive to not sell your Hedron. And you can stake your Hedron in exchange for icosa. The daily yield in icosa terms is determined by the daily amount of Hedron burnt. Because remember that half of the Hedron from that cashed in HSI is getting burnt, and based on the amount of Hedron burnt, that's going to determine, there's a calculation, which I'm assuming is in the smart contract, which I haven't seen yet. There's a calculation going on that will determine the amount of icosa. And remember, it's inflating from 0, but it's only inflating as much as people are cashing in their HSIs. So you can stake Hedron for icosa, and you can stake icosa for both Hedron and more icosa. I'll repeat that. You can stake Hedron for icosa, but you can stake icosa for both Hedron and icosa. Okay? Just read the website. It's all right here. So just like in the Hedron stakes, your icosa will come from the daily burnt Hedron as a calculation. And then the Hedron that you get comes from the borrowed HSI stakes and also emergency end stake penalties collected by the contract over time. So when you stake Hedron and icosa, similar to in HEX, there actually are terms that you have to follow through on. And these terms, the minimum amount of days that you have to stake these coins, is determined based on your class. Are you a dolphin, whale, shark, squid, whatever? And whales actually have to stake longer. So whales are forced to stake longer. Their minimum stake term is longer, which is good because they're the ones that can hurt the price more. So if you're a bigger holder and you want to get involved in staking of either Hedron or icosa, the contract is going to force you to hold for a longer time. Otherwise, you'll experience emergency end stake penalties, just like in HEX. So I think that was a really good aspect of HEX that's also being incorporated into Hedron and icosa because it's a proven staking model that definitely works well. And one more thing I should mention, guys, Hedron stakes and icosa stakes, it's only 1 per account, meaning 1 per address, I believe. So you can only basically make 1 Hedron stake and 1 icosa stake. And then you can add to that stake or you can take away from that stake, but 1 stake per account, 1 stake per public address, I should say. And then at the end of the video, we're going to talk about We Are All the SA. So stick around to the end because this is a really cool thing, but I want to finish talking about the staking, right? So the contract has been written. Again, I haven't seen it yet. I'm sure it's going to be audited. This was written by Alex, who's the creator of Hedron. So, you know, the Hedron contract is very solid, very well audited. And this guy's a trusted developer in the space. He's been around for a while and he's doing this all for HEX, right? He's doing this all for the ecosystem to basically make it better for everybody, to add game theory, price positive feedback loops, and all that kind of stuff. But so the contract's been written, the interface has not yet been created, and the icosa code front end, whatever, has not formally been deployed yet. So you're still early, right? Again, mid-July is what we're thinking. So look at all these alleged benefits from icosa, right? Let me know what you guys think about these. But this is what they're claiming is essentially the point of Hedron and icosa together. So with the ability to now stake both Hedron and icosa, you actually decrease HEX sell pressure, which makes sense because it actually incentivizes more HEX to be staked and taken off the market because now you can do more with your HEX. You have more functionality. With a staked HEX HSI, you can now not only trade the HSI, or take out a loan against your HSI and Hedron, but you could also stake, you know, Hedron and icosa. So it just adds to the incentive for people to want to stake HEX, and in return, it decreases sell pressure because that's literally what staking does. Decrease Hedron sell pressure, right? Because now you can stake Hedron. Scarce token supply, because, you know, icosa is minted very scarcely. It also burns Hedron, right? So you have increased Hedron burning incentive, which takes supply off the market. And we've seen in things like Pulse X, you know, the buy and burn function tends to be very popular, at least in terms of a narrative meme, right? But also, in effect, the actual mechanic is very good for the price. It's literally so easy to understand. You're burning tokens forever. You're taking supply away. So even without demand, these tokens theoretically might get more valuable. And they also say something called reduced liquidity scavenging. Now, I'm not quite sure what this means, but this might have something to do with people gaming the system between the HEX-Hedron pair of liquidity by just giving them an alternate thing to do with their Hedron rather than just dump it for HEX or vice versa. Now they can stake it. So we'll scroll down to the staking design. So again, one stake per wallet. Each wallet can only hold one stake of each type. That's one Hedron stake and one icosa stake. You can add capital to your stake at any time. However, this will reset the minimum days, the minimum stake length of days. And the minimum stake length in days is enforced by the protocol to focus on the fact that larger stakers are forced to stake for longer amounts of time, but they also receive more yield for doing so, right? And smaller stakers don't have to stake as long, although they can if they want to. And there's no maximum stake length, which is pretty cool because the max length in HEX is 5,555 days. Here, there's apparently no maximum. And whatever they've done with the contract makes it so that it does not cost any more gas to end shorter versus longer stakes. So I think that's a pretty awesome innovation. I kind of wish HEX had that, but it doesn't. Okay, so then the HSI buybacks, right? A guaranteed buyer for your HSI at all times. If you want to get rid of your HSI, you can just send it into icosa, right? It'll pay you in some ICSA token. And there's bonuses too. So if you have some of these wrapped stakes from the early days, you can get a 1 to 10% bonus depending on how early you were in that Hedron minting phase and claiming phase. And also, if you have a max length stake, you can also get a 10% bonus when you cash in your HSI that way. And again, this is all a repeat, but stakes are borrowed against, so they take out all the Hedron that stake could have ever made, and then they sell that stake on the auction market, and all that borrowed Hedron is then given to the ICSA staking pool. Well, half is burned, and then half is distributed to the icosa staking pool, right? And then there's this really cool thing down here. This is called the We Are All the Source address, or SA. So We Are All the Source address is kind of a meme from the We Are All Satoshi bonus in HEX. If anybody remembers that, that was over 2 years ago at this point. So kind of cool to see some of these memes coming back. But this is just like a fun thing that he added in. Kind of like as a fun game so that everybody that takes part in icosa when it first launches has an opportunity to be a really big whale in the system. So basically there's going to be these staking NFTs. And these don't have a price. These NFTs don't have a price. It's however much you want to pay for one of these icosa NFTs. Right, so there's going to be this launch phase where you can buy one of these NFTs, and that NFT, based on how much you paid for it, I'm assuming it's in USD terms, right? You can pay with Hedron, HEX, USDC, and a couple of other coins. When you buy one of these NFTs in this limited time event, right, there's not a set price, again, and just like Hedron staking, having one of these NFTs, owning one of these NFTs entitles you to get yield in icosa, just like a Hedron stake. So this staking NFT is just like a Hedron stake, but you're basically staking your claim early on and saying, I want to put up, let's say, $5,000 and buy an NFT. And this NFT entitles me to icosa in a private pool. So it's a private pool for all these NFT holders that aren't getting diluted. And the percentage that you put into this NFT when you buy it dictates what percentage of the overall icosa staking pool you receive in return. So if, $1 million goes into the staking pool total and I pay $100,000 to buy my NFT, well, I now own 1/10 of the entire staking pool for icosa for this private pool. And then the really cool thing is that after the phase is over, is that basically yield boosting mechanics. So when people end their NFT stakes, you can never get back into this pool. It's a one and done thing. So it's essentially a game of last man standing, which I think is super fun. You could have maybe hundreds of people that join this pool, and then slowly over time, they just start dropping like flies. Because whenever you end your stake from these NFT stakes, these early We Are All the SA stakes, right? These NFT stakes, when they end, you can never get it back again. So when you end one of these special early stakes, you can never ever get it back. And so over time, the very last man standing will earn 100% of all the pool yield for all that icosa. So that's pretty cool. Now I do want to look into the intricacies of the actual smart contract, but again, it's not public yet. But you can go ahead and join the Twitter and Telegram and ask more questions. I just found out about this, so I'm pretty new to it, but it's going to be something you want to keep your eyes on, especially coming out in mid-July. I think this could really reinvigorate Hedron in terms of bringing more attention to it, more functionality, staking, and just making the overall ecosystem in HEX that much more awesome. Okay, I love that people are building on top of HEX like this in wholesome ways that don't really have any negative externalities on people. And so the three things I like to recap about Hedron and icosa that I've seen so far is basically, crypto is all narratives, right? But we've seen that what icosa is trying to do is play into three of these narratives that people seem to really respond well to. So I think that's what Alex has done with icosa. One of them is this, staking. Obviously, people like staking. It gives an incentive to hold both Hedron and icosa and, make the number go up on all these coins, HEX included, as a nice side effect. Number two, I think Alex is playing into the auction house thing. So he found out that the auction house for HSI HEX stakes was actually very successful. People like getting a good deal by buying stakes essentially in a time machine as if they were buying them earlier. So he's playing into this HSI, hey, cash in your HSI, we'll give you ICOSA, and then we can make the auction house a lot more of a thriving ecosystem as well. And then 3, I think he also recognized that burning tokens works very well. I mean, we haven't even seen PulseX launch yet, and people are just drooling over this buy and burn function. I mean, the token supply is going to decrease slowly over time, and I think that's a simple concept for people to understand, right? You burn tokens, they go away. Supply down, price up, right? It's very simple. So these 3 things, the auction houses, the staking, and the burn functionality, you know, it increases scarcity, it increases incentives for people to hold, and then everybody wins together. So I'm very interested in this project. I'm going to keep an eye on it, and I'll let you guys know as more information comes out. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure you like and subscribe if you want more content like this. And also, buy some merch, guys. Check out the merch shelf below. We've got mugs, we've got hats. We're going to have pants coming out soon. It's going to be great. I'm still selling courses, also in the description below. And the course V2 is going to be coming out soon. So thanks, guys, and I'll see you on the next video.